Good morning and welcome to Financial Friday, your end of week financial update. Good morning. I am Crystal Parker, the Financial Education and Community Outreach Ambassador for the Credit Union, and I am delighted to join you today for another Financial Friday. We have covered a variety of topics over the last several weeks, and it has been some great conversations. We have talked about VA loans. We've talked about, when is the right time to sell, understanding as a new home buyer. We've talked about allowance, and we've even talked about rate shopping. And with many of these things that involve lending, one of the things that people have questions about is understanding their credit score. And as promised, we're coming back to that topic, and I'm here today to talk to you about understanding your credit score. So let's dig in. So what exactly is a credit score? This is a number which predicts credit risk. Essentially, this is showing a lender how likely are you to repay a loan if it's given to you. It's also important to know that this changes constantly, okay? And this varies from person to person. Today, I'm primarily focusing on the FICO score. There are other scoring systems out there, but we're focusing on FICO. You can find more of this information on myFICO or FICO.com. Information shared today does come from there, as well as some resources from the Virginia Credit Union League's Financial Education Committee. All right, so first thing to know is that your score is unique to you. Just like the information in your credit report changes, so does the information of the factors that affect your score, and it changes. And each of us have different habits financially that are affecting our scores in different ways, okay? Your credit report and score is going to evolve frequently. And because of this, it's not really possible to say this one thing or this thing is going to cause your score to go up or down and how much. So what exactly is your score, all right? Your score is calculated using many different pieces of credit data in your credit report. I like to think of your credit score as a pie. It is one giant whole of these many factors, and no one wants a pie that's missing a piece. So you want all of these pieces that are affecting it and causing it to go up and down, okay? So there's 5 pieces. You have your payment history, and this is worth 35%. You have your amounts owed, which is worth 30%. You have your credit mix, which is worth 10%, the length of your credit history worth 15%, and you have your new credit, which is worth 10%, okay? The importance of these categories may vary from one person to another because each of us are in very different financial situations, okay? But let's dig in and look at each of these pieces. Payment history. This is the most important part of your credit history, all right? If I could tell you anything, just make sure you pay your bills on time, okay? Because you don't want to have any bankruptcies, you don't want to have any collection accounts, and you really want to avoid late payments if you can. Because what happens is the first thing any lender wants to know is whether you've had past credit accounts that are having some payment issues, okay? So if you had late payments, how frequently did this happen? How severe was this, and how many times and how recently was this, okay? So the best thing that you can do is keep your payment history in good standing and have a very healthy history, all right? Next, we have to look at the amounts owed. This is worth almost as much as your payment history. This is 30%, and I think this is a part of your credit history. This is a part of credit scores that some folks take for granted, because this is looking at credit accounts that have those fluctuating balances. So like a credit card or a line of credit where you can spend as much or as little as you want, and how quickly you're paying on this varies from person to person. So you could have a credit card with a $10,000 limit or $500 limit. Perhaps it has a $2,000 limit. And so if you're spending that money, we have to remember it's not free money. We have to have a plan for paying it back and ensure that we have the funds available to do so. And if we're not able to pay it all off at once, how much of a balance are we carrying? Because that balance to limit ratio is what's affecting your amounts owed. So for example, if you had a credit card with a $2,000 limit, you want to keep that limit if you're carrying a balance less than 50%. You know, that would be good. And so not carrying a balance more than $1,000 from one month to the next. But an ideal range would be to keep it less than $600 as a balance, because that would be at that 30% mark. So not carrying a huge balance over from one month to the next, that's going to affect your credit, okay? You want to just make sure you're not overextending yourselves. The next part of your credit is the types of credit, or your credit mix. Some say that variety is the spice of life, and so the same could be said for your credit score. So what types of things make up your credit? Do you have a home loan, a mortgage? Do you have an auto loan? Do you have student loans? Do you have credit cards? How many credit cards do you have? Do you have personal loans? It's not to say that you need to have all of these things, but you know, do you have a variety of types of loans that you're paying on? Are you able to budget and pay for these things? So this makes up your credit mix, all right? The next piece, and this is the third most important part of your credit score, is the length of your history. The longer you've had a credit history, the more beneficial this is going to be with your credit. This isn't to say that somebody that has longer credit history is going to have better credit than someone with a newer credit history. But this is to say that maintaining those relationships with some of those credit cards for a long period of time can really benefit you in maintaining some of those relationships that you have, okay? So that credit card you got in your early 20s, now that you're in your 40s and 50s, you've had that credit card a long time. You know, what's the other credit card that you've had, you know, nearly as long? Kind of being mindful of the credit cards you have open, closing them, and the things like that, because that can and will have an effect on your credit score. The last piece that affects your credit score is your new credit, okay? So this is looking at the number of new accounts you've opened, the number of inquiries into your credit. And this isn't to say that opening and getting new credit is a bad thing, but this is looking at how frequently this happens. You know, is there something risky going on? And it's looking at those different pieces. So those are the pieces that make up your credit score. And you have to remember that your score is unique to you, okay? For each of us, the different things that are affecting us financially and how we are managing our money and spending our money and borrowing is going to be unique to each of us. How we're managing our finances is going to be unique to each of us. And that these things change from month to month and how they're affecting our credit. And so you're going to see these fluctuations in your score. It's really hard to say which thing is going to have which impact on your score and to what degree. That's just something, we don't have all of those details, but just being mindful of how big of an impact these different things do have on your score, and being thoughtful and intentional about the things that you do financially, because these will affect your score, and then they do affect the opportunities that you have. So, last but certainly not least, we talked about this before, but I do want to share it again, is to make sure that you are getting a free copy of your credit report each year. You are entitled under the Fair Credit Reporting Act to receive one once every 12 months. Go to annualcreditreport.com to obtain your free copy. If you prefer to receive it in the mail, you can get the form and then send it to the address shown on your screen, okay? Thank you for joining us today. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. If there's a topic that you would like to see us cover, please send us a message. You can let us know at fined@henricofcu.org, fin for financial, ed for education, fined@henrico, F as in Frank, C as in cat, U as umbrella.org. Let us know if you have questions, topics you'd like to see us cover, and we can't wait to join you again next Friday for another Financial Friday at 9:30.